Jerry Seinfeld was recently interviewed on a Harvard Business Review podcast, what's called the HBR IdeaCast, and what he had to say has implications for public speakers. Because the interviewer had said that when he saw Jerry Seinfeld in a documentary, there's a scene of Seinfeld before a show, and it's striking how nervous he seemed, even though he's had so much preparation and so much success. So he asked Seinfeld, what do you do before the show, the last 10 minutes, to get mentally prepared and to get yourself psyched up for going out on stage? Seinfeld said you don't have to get psyched up because the audience takes care of that for you. As soon as you walk out, in his case in front of 3,000 people who have paid maybe $75 to $100, with the expectation that he's going to make them laugh for an hour or more. So he says you feel it as soon as you walk out on stage, as any public speaker does. But he says every comedian, like every athlete, has a routine that they do beforehand. His routine is to look at his notes until it's 5 minutes before the show. He knows it's 5 minutes before the show because the producer comes up to him, says, Jerry, 5 minutes to showtime. That's when Jerry Seinfeld will put his blazer on, and then he says his body knows, okay, here we go, it's time to do our trick. Then he paces for about those last 5 minutes before actually going out on stage, and that's it. But that's the routine that he does. It's a pre-show routine, and he says he never varies it. He does this to signal to his brain and his body everything that it needs to know before going out there on stage. Now, the interviewer said he is known for obsessing. Seinfeld's known for obsessing after the show. So he asked about the post-show thought process. Seinfeld said you have to be harshly critical of yourself because the audiences, and he made a really interesting point. He says that a comedian is the most harshly judged person on the planet. Even an athlete is not judged every 6 to 12 seconds like a comedian is. A comedian is constantly being evaluated by the audience because those jokes come at you every 6 to 12 seconds. So he says you have to be harshly critical after the show of your performance in the same way that you also have to be nurturing and affirmative and confident. Because if you're not doing that, then the self-critique can become so harsh, you could actually go over the edge. You have to be able to encourage yourself, and he calls it being courageous so that you can bring yourself back from that brink and then be honest enough to say, this material was good, this other material was good but not good enough, and it comes out of the show. So he says he sometimes is so self-critical that he gets almost depressed. He gets close to that, and he says that is the hardest part of the business, is actually keeping himself from getting depressed to the point of actually going over that edge. Now, he also points out that most comedians are very much that way. When they come off stage, if you say, how is that? A lot of them just say, I hate myself. And that's the nature of being a comedian. Kind of that very harsh judgment that goes on. And but as Seinfeld says, that harsh judgment makes us better. At the same time, we bring a confidence. We need to bring a swag to it as well so that we can make ourselves better and at the same time not push ourselves over the edge. Comedy is not exactly the same thing as public speaking. It's actually much more difficult in my mind. So obviously what Jerry Seinfeld has to say about pre-show prep and post-show thought process is certainly something any public speaker would do well to take into account.